Bully kicks the new black principal, unaware of the chain. Before we dive in, remember to hit that subscribe button and let me know your city in the comments. Enjoy the story time. The sharp impact came without warning, a deliberate kick to the side of Mr. James's leg as he sat quietly eating his lunch. His body jerked forward, sending half the contents of his tray sliding across the table in a clatter of silverware and spilled food. For one breathless moment, the cafeteria fell completely silent. Then the whispers began, rippling outward like stones dropped in still water. The boy responsible, Marcus, stood there with a smirk that had become his trademark, leaning back with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never faced real consequences. The kind of confidence that made other students step aside in hallways without him even asking. "What's wrong, old man?" Marcus sneered, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Can't handle a little push?" Mr. James didn't flinch. Instead, he set his tray down with deliberate slowness, wiped a bit of spilled sauce from the table with his napkin, and looked up at Marcus with the calmest expression anyone in Riverdale High had ever witnessed. There was no anger in his face, no pain, no surprise. Just quiet, measured observation. That look alone made several students shift uncomfortably in their seats, suddenly unsure whether they should laugh along or stay perfectly still. Some instinct whispered that something was different about this man, though they couldn't say what. Earlier that morning, Mr. James had walked into the history classroom like any ordinary substitute teacher. Marcus had noticed him immediately, the composed black man in his mid-40s, with posture that spoke of discipline and a steady gaze that didn't waver under scrutiny. "Good morning," Mr. James said, his voice low but carrying clearly through the room. "Please take your seats and settle down." Students shuffled to their desks, whispers passing from one to another. Marcus leaned back in his chair, rolling his eyes dramatically. "Another one who thinks he can actually teach us," he muttered to the kid beside him, just loud enough to be heard. "Sir, are you filling in all day?" a girl in the front row asked. "Yes," Mr. James replied calmly. "Let's make this productive. If you need clarification on anything, please speak up." Marcus couldn't resist. "Productive," he grinned, already planning how to make this substitute's day miserable. "We'll see about that." Mr. James glanced at him once, a look that was steady and unwavering, then returned to writing on the board. The classroom gradually settled, students curious about the strange composure this man carried like armor. When the lesson began, Mr. James spoke with careful precision, but without dramatics or showmanship. "History isn't just memorizing dates and names," he said. "It's about understanding choices and their consequences. Listen carefully, and you'll see patterns that matter in your lives today." "Do you always talk like that?" someone asked. "Yes," Mr. James replied simply. "Clarity helps everyone follow along. If I'm moving too quickly, tell me." Marcus snorted under his breath. "This is going to be fun," he muttered, loud enough for half the room to hear. Mr. James didn't react, letting the comment hang in the air. His calm presence was already unsettling in a way Marcus couldn't quite understand. By third period, Marcus had found his rhythm. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, smirking at Mr. James like he'd already won some invisible contest. "So, Mr. Calm and Collected," he said, voice carrying through the classroom, "how long are you going to stand there pretending to care about history?" His friends snickered on cue, nudging each other, waiting for the reaction they'd seen from so many other teachers. Mr. James didn't flinch. He kept his gaze on the papers in front of him for a moment, then slowly looked up. "I'm here to help everyone learn," he said evenly, "not to argue with someone who thinks mocking others is a lesson." Marcus laughed, leaning further back in his chair. "Mocking? I'm not mocking anyone, just pointing out that some of you can't even keep the class awake." A few students snickered quietly, but no one dared meet his eyes directly. "Come on, seriously, what is this? history or nap time? Mr. James didn't raise his voice. He simply folded his hands on the desk and said, "History is exactly what I teach, and if you listen, you might find it more interesting than you expect." Marcus rolled his eyes, leaning toward his friend. "He doesn't even know what he's talking about. Watch this." He called out again, louder, "Hey, slow talk, can you speed it up a bit? Maybe even make it exciting if that's possible." The class tensed. Everyone waited, expecting a harsh reaction, a raised voice, a threat of detention. But Mr. James's voice remained perfectly calm. "Learning is most effective when it's understood, not rushed. You're welcome to speak up if you need a faster pace." Marcus smirked, clearly frustrated that his usual tactics weren't working. "Oh, we can speak up. All right then. Tell me, why do we even need to learn all this stuff from hundreds of years ago?" Mr. James paused, letting the question settle in the room. "Because history shapes the decisions you make today. Knowing it gives you perspective." A hand went up in the middle row. "So it actually matters?" a student asked, genuinely curious. Mr. James nodded. "Exactly. It matters more than you realize. Ignoring its lessons only ensures mistakes will repeat themselves." Marcus snorted, leaning on his desk, but the smirk faltered slightly. "Sure, perspective, whatever. I guess some people think they're smarter than everyone else." Mr. James looked at him directly, eyes steady and clear. "Intelligence doesn't come from loud voices or quick comebacks. It comes from understanding, listening, and thinking critically." "You mean like you, calm and collected," Marcus said, trying to edge back into mockery. Mr. James tilted his head slightly, still calm, still unshaken. "I'm here to teach, not to compete with anyone's attitude." Marcus's friends exchanged nervous glances. One whispered, "He's not even mad. How is he not mad?" For the first time that day, Marcus realized this wasn't going to be as easy as he'd thought. He'd pushed teachers, students, even staff before, but this quiet man didn't play by the usual rules. "Fine," Marcus muttered, leaning back fully in his chair. "We'll see how long your calm lasts, old man. Bet it cracks sooner or later." Mr. James didn't respond immediately. He simply smiled faintly and continued the lesson, pacing slowly through the classroom, drawing diagrams and explaining details with a precision that kept most students genuinely engaged. The tension remained thick but controlled. Marcus shifted in his chair, already plotting his next move, completely unaware that the quiet patience in front of him was the first step toward turning his entire world upside down. During passing period, Mr. James walked slowly through the hallway, hands folded behind his back, eyes taking in everything. Students rushed past with books tucked under their arms, laughing and talking loudly. But he noticed the subtleties. How some kids avoided eye contact, how others froze when Marcus passed by, and how a few teachers barely looked up when chaos erupted in the halls. One student muttered to his friend, "Why is he just watching everything?" The friend shrugged, "I don't know, man, he's kind of weird." Mr. James paused near a row of lockers, listening to a group of students whispering nearby. "Did you see what he did in class? Nobody even made him mad," one boy said. "I know," another replied. "It's like he's untouchable or something." Mr. James stepped away quietly, moving toward the cafeteria entrance. He spotted Marcus strutting down the hall, that smug grin plastered on his face as other students hurried to get out of his way. A teacher tried to call him back, "Marcus, please." But he waved her off with a laugh and kept walking. Mr. James's gaze followed him calmly, noting the way this boy carried power simply through intimidation. He stopped by a bench and watched several students scrolling on their phones, pretending not to notice a smaller boy who shifted uncomfortably nearby, glancing over at Marcus as if expecting trouble. "Can't they just leave me alone?" the boy whispered to no one in particular. Mr. James crouched slightly, speaking softly. "You'll be okay. Just stay calm and stay aware." The boy blinked, startled, then nodded quickly and returned to his locker. Mr. James continued moving, pausing near a classroom door where a teacher looked stressed while trying to manage a rowdy group. "Why is it always him?" the teacher muttered under her breath. A student nearby added, "Everyone just lets him do whatever he wants." Mr. James's lips pressed together, but he didn't speak. He only observed, storing details, noticing patterns, understanding the dynamics without making a sound. In the library, he saw students whispering, glancing nervously toward the hallway. "Marcus is around," one said. Another muttered, "Better stay quiet." Mr. James approached their table and crouched near them. "Are you all right? Do you need help with anything?" The group looked surprised, then nodded hesitantly. "Thank you, sir," one whispered. By the time lunch rolled around, Mr. James had a complete picture. He stood near the cafeteria entrance, eyes following every move, noticing who avoided confrontation, who stayed silent, and who unknowingly fed the tension. A group of students whispered about Marcus's antics, and one muttered, "He's unstoppable." Mr. James's response was quiet but firm as he passed by. "No one is untouchable if you stay aware and act wisely." He paused at a corner, folding his arms. Marcus entered, flanked by his usual friends, smirking with confidence. Mr. James watched him, calm but measured, as if already planning a way to shift the energy. A student nudged another. "Why isn't he doing anything?" they asked. "Because he's waiting," the other whispered, "and I think he knows exactly what to do next." Mr. James's gaze stayed on Marcus, steady, unshaken, silently calculating every move, every reaction, and every moment he could use to turn the tables. The tension was barely visible but completely palpable, and everyone near him felt it without understanding why. He didn't speak much, but when he did, it was precise and commanding, revealing the depth of someone who had already seen how the entire day would unfold. Marcus spotted Mr. James sitting alone at a table, his lunch tray neatly arranged, seemingly untouched by the chaos swirling around him. "Look at him," Marcus whispered to his friends, nudging one of them. "Sitting there like he owns the place, but he can't even defend himself." His friend chuckled, glancing at Mr. James. "He looks calm, but come on, man. He's just a sub, easy target." Marcus strode toward the table, shoving a chair back carelessly. "Hey, teacher man," he called out, voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "What's the deal? You just going to sit there and eat like you're king or something?" Mr. James didn't flinch. He continued eating slowly, methodically, looking up just long enough to meet Marcus's gaze. "I'm enjoying my lunch," he said calmly. "Would you like to join me, or is there something else on your mind?" Marcus's smirk widened. "Oh, I've got my own agenda," he said, leaning forward menacingly. "Maybe I should help you out of that chair, give you a little push so you understand the rules around here." A few students at nearby tables shifted in their seats, murmuring among themselves. "He's really going to do it," one whispered. Another muttered, "I don't think Mr. James even cares." Marcus's friends laughed as he took a small step closer. "What's the matter? Can't handle a little contact," he taunted. "Maybe I should make this fun, see if you even flinch." Mr. James placed his fork down carefully, set his hands on the table and looked at Marcus steadily. "I'm fine, thank you," he said evenly. "I prefer not to escalate things unnecessarily." Marcus's face twisted into mock sympathy. "Escalate? You mean like reacting? Come on, don't be shy, everyone's watching. Stand up for yourself if you can." Mr. James remained perfectly still, composed, his eyes locked on Marcus. "There's no need for theatrics. You can choose how you act and I can choose how I respond." Marcus's grin faltered for just a fraction of a second. Then he laughed louder this time. "All right, old man. Let's see how much of a teacher you really are." Without warning, he swung his leg sharply, connecting hard with Mr. James's thigh. The impact made the man jerk slightly forward, causing some of his food to spill across the table in a messy splash. Gasps rippled through the cafeteria. Students froze mid-bite, some clutching their trays, others staring wide-eyed at the scene unfolding before them. Marcus stood back, chest puffed out, waiting for the reaction he was certain would come. The anger, the shouting, maybe even tears. "I'll see that," he sneered. Didn't even flinch, pathetic. Mr. James slowly straightened in his seat, setting the tray back carefully. His hands were perfectly steady. His expression remained unreadable. "You've made a choice," he said quietly, each word deliberate and weighted. "Now we'll see what consequences follow." Marcus's friends laughed nervously, suddenly unsure if they should continue encouraging him. "Dude, maybe back off," one whispered. "Relax," Marcus said, eyes still fixed on Mr. James. "I've got this under control." Mr. James glanced around the cafeteria calmly, noting every student's reaction, every teacher observing quietly from the sides. "Control isn't about intimidation," he said softly. "It's about understanding limits and knowing when to act." Marcus laughed again, but this time it was tinged with uncertainty. Limits, act, what's he even talking about? The tension hung heavy in the air, almost tangible. Mr. James continued eating calmly, his composure a stark contrast to the chaos he had just endured. Students watched in stunned silence, whispers spreading like wildfire. And Marcus realized, for the very first time, that he might have severely underestimated this quiet man. The cafeteria door swung open with a firm push, and Principal Henderson stepped inside. His eyes immediately took in the scene, Marcus standing over Mr. James's table, the smirk on his face beginning to fade as the principal's presence filled the space with authority. "Marcus," Principal Henderson said, his voice steady but sharp, cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "You've gone too far this time." Marcus froze, glancing around at the students who had been watching with wide eyes. "I was just joking," he said quickly, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. "Nothing serious." Principal Henderson's gaze didn't waver. "This isn't a joke. Not anymore." His voice rose slightly, demanding everyone's attention. Students shuffled uncomfortably, sensing that this moment was fundamentally different from any usual confrontation. A teacher near the edge of the room muttered under her breath, "I've never seen him like this before." Mr. James slowly stood from the table, setting his tray aside. His expression remained calm but commanding. "Marcus," he said quietly, his tone almost conversational, "I suggest you step back and consider your choices very carefully." Marcus's smirk returned briefly, as though he could still salvage control of the situation. "Yeah, and what are you going to do about it?" cried to the principal. Principal Henderson stepped closer, shoulders squared. "Mr. James is not just a substitute teacher," he said, his voice carrying clearly over the cafeteria chatter. "He is the new principal of this school. I am retiring today, and he will take my place immediately." A collective gasp filled the room, so loud it seemed to echo off the walls. Marcus's eyes widened, his confidence crumbling visibly. "Wait, what?" he said, almost whispering. Students around him exchanged looks of complete disbelief. "No way," someone breathed. "He's the principal." "Yes," Mr. James said calmly, his voice even but unmistakably firm. "I've been here all day, observing, learning, and preparing to lead this school. Your actions have consequences, Marcus. This school will no longer be a place where intimidation rules." Marcus's friends shuffled nervously, their bravado evaporating. "Oh man, this isn't what we planned," one muttered. Marcus, still in shock, stammered, I didn't know, I mean." Principal Henderson interrupted, his voice steady and leaving no room for argument. "Marcus, you have terrorized your classmates for far too long. This ends right now. You will face the full consequences of your actions." Marcus swallowed hard, the usual bravado completely gone from his expression. Consequences? What do you mean? You're expelled from Riverdale High, Henderson said firmly, each word deliberate and final. Students around the room murmured in shock, some gasping, others whispering in disbelief. Marcus's jaw dropped, and his friends stared at him with wide eyes, unable to believe what they were hearing. Mr. James's gaze remained on him, calm, unwavering, impossibly steady. "This behavior will not be tolerated," he added quietly. "You have choices every single day. Today, yours led you here." Marcus's face drained of color, his chest rising and falling rapidly as reality crashed down on him. "You can't. This isn't fair," he muttered, his voice trembling. Henderson shook his head slowly. "Fairness has limits when others are being hurt. Actions have consequences." The students sat in complete silence, watching as Marcus was escorted toward the door by security. The entire balance of the cafeteria had shifted, and for the first time that day, everyone realized the quiet man at the center of it all wasn't just any teacher. He was in charge, and he was going to change everything. Marcus stood frozen, staring at Mr. James with disbelief written across every feature. You can't do this," he shouted, his voice cracking, hands trembling at his sides. Students around him whispered urgently, glancing at each other with wide eyes. Principal Henderson stepped closer, his presence calm but unmistakably firm. "Marcus, you've crossed the line too many times. Your actions have caused fear and pain. It ends now," he said clearly. "You are expelled from Riverdale High." Marcus's smirk had completely vanished. "Expelled? You're kidding, right? I'm the one everyone listens to," he barked, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Mr. James's voice cut through the noise, calm and measured. "Intimidation is not leadership, Marcus. You've confused fear with respect. That stops here today." Marcus took a step back, glancing around desperately at the other students, hoping someone, anyone, would step in on his behalf. "Come on, you can't just kick me out like this," he pleaded. "You forced this outcome," Principal Henderson said, his voice steady as granite. "Actions have consequences. You've made your choices." Mr. James's eyes locked onto Marcus's. "You had control here, yes, but control earned through fear is fragile. Today, you're seeing the difference. People follow respect, not threats." Marcus's friends exchanged uneasy glances, unable to find words. One whispered nervously, "Maybe we should just let this happen." Marcus shook his head violently, desperation creeping into his voice. "No, this isn't fair. I run this school." "You run nothing," Mr. James said, his voice calm but razor-sharp. "You've had your chance to lead responsibly. Today shows what happens when you don't." The security staff moved closer and Marcus's face went pale. "You can't. I mean, this isn't right," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Actions have consequences," Principal Henderson repeated firmly. "It's your turn to face them." As Marcus was escorted toward the exit, students watched in silent awe, whispers filling every corner of the room. Mr. James remained perfectly calm, scanning the cafeteria, his presence commanding respect without a single raised voice. The balance of power had shifted completely, and for the first time in years, Marcus felt utterly powerless. The cafeteria settled into a low hum as Marcus disappeared through the doors. The air was still tense from the confrontation, but something had fundamentally changed. Mr. James straightened, adjusting his sleeves, then looked at the students gathered around with calm authority. "Everyone, please return to your tables and finish your lunch. There's no reason for more chaos," he said, his voice steady yet commanding. A boy near the back whispered to his friend, "Did you see that? He didn't even raise his voice once." Mr. James's gaze swept the room, meeting several curious eyes. "I know this may feel sudden, but what happened today was necessary," he said clearly. "Rules exist for a reason, and respect is not optional. It's earned and maintained." One student raised a hand hesitantly. "Sir, Will he come back? No, Mr. James replied simply. Today he learned a lesson. That is enough. This school belongs to everyone, not just those who try to take it by force. Another student asked quietly, so you're really in charge now? Yes, he said, a faint smile appearing briefly on his face. I am here to guide, not to intimidate. I intend to make sure everyone feels safe and heard. That includes you and anyone who thought otherwise. A murmur of approval spread across several tables. One boy whispered, I think we finally have someone who actually cares. Mr. James nodded slightly, then continued, This isn't about fear. It's about fairness, understanding, and learning. If anyone feels overwhelmed or alone, my door is always open. We move forward together, not divided by fear or disrespect. Students exchanged glances, the weight of the moment settling over them like a warm blanket. A few nodded, others whispered quietly to friends, but all of them sensed the profound shift that had just occurred. Mr. James stood calmly at the front of the cafeteria, silent for a moment, then said softly, Now finish your lunch. Let's make the rest of this day productive. We've already begun to change things, and it starts with each of you making the right choice. The students gradually settled back into their seats. The chatter returned, but it was quieter now, more cautious, more respectful. Everyone was acutely aware that the school's entire balance had shifted, and the quiet man at the center of it all was fully in control. The lunch bell rang, and students filed out of the cafeteria with a mix of awe and uncertainty. Whispers spread through the hallways like electricity. Did you see him? He didn't even yell, one student murmured. Yeah, and Marcus is actually gone, another replied, shaking his head in disbelief. In the principal's office, Mr. James sat behind the desk for the first time, hands folded, eyes scanning the hallway through the window. The PA system crackled to life, and his voice came through, calm but unmistakably authoritative. Attention, students and staff, he began. I know today has been unexpected. I want you all to understand what's happening here. A student in the back hallway whispered, He sounds so calm, like scary calm. Mr. James continued, I've spent this entire day observing and listening. This school can be a place of genuine opportunity, but only if respect and responsibility guide our actions. Bullying, intimidation, and fear have no place here. Everyone deserves to feel safe and valued. A boy listening nearby asked quietly, So what happens now? Now, Mr. James said firmly through the speakers, we work together to create an environment where every student can thrive. If anyone feels alone or unsure, my door is open. No one should ever feel powerless in this building. Another student muttered, He actually means it, you can tell. Mr. James's voice softened slightly but remained steady. I'm here to lead, but I cannot do this alone. Each of you plays a vital part in shaping this school. The choices you make every day matter. Together, we will build a community based on respect, fairness, and understanding. Those unwilling to follow these principles will have to find another place. Whispers filled the hallways again, but this time they carried a sense of hope rather than fear. Wow, one student said, things are actually going to be different now. Mr. James watched students moving through the corridors from his office window, calm and composed, a faint smile appearing on his face. Tomorrow, he said quietly, almost to himself, marks the first day of a new beginning. The atmosphere had transformed completely. The quiet man who had been underestimated all day now held the entire school in his steady hands, ready to guide it toward a future where respect was no longer optional, but expected. And as the final bell rang, signaling the end of that extraordinary day, every student at Riverdale High knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again.